Look, Donald Trump insulting me is a badge of honor for me, but I think we all know, as both as an educator for a couple decades and as a parent, using that term is just so damaging. It's hurtful.
Well, did you notice he didn't say it was inaccurate or incorrect? That's interesting. How about that? And it is Cyber Monday. Mike Opelka back in for my friend Chris Plant. This is the Chris Plant Show. Chris with a last minute call to the bullpen. I did expect Chris to be here today. He should be back tomorrow, but I'm here and will do my level best with the help of Michael Piercy and Jeff Wolf and everyone else to hold up the fine standards of this show. But that clip from Kamala's running mate and the current governor of the state of Minnesota is just very interesting to me. It is a reaction, a gigantic reaction to something said by the President of the United States and the question of the R word, as it has been called so many times now since the president referred to the governor of Minnesota as the R word. I'm not saying it because there are places that do not want it on the radio. I know many in the media couldn't wait. Many on the left side of the mainstream media could not wait to quote the president, say, well, the president said it. Yeah. We're going to say regarded, highly regarded. Yes, the highly regarded Tim Walz. President Trump referring to him slightly differently. Neurodivergent, I think, was the word that Chris latched onto from the people out in Berkeley when California put out a list of alternate terms that the woke world wanted us to use instead of the terms we've been using forever. But no, you aren't allowed to use the R word there, but they want you to say neurodivergent. And I think it's just easier to call him highly regarded, the highly regarded Tim Walz. The reality is the word does make a lot of people cringe. And yet, if you're driving a truck on the highway and you're going downhill on a long graded slope, if you're driving a huge semi-tractor trailer carrying a lot of weight and you're going downhill, the governing authority will usually post signs that require truckers to use a brake retarder. So you're allowed to use that word in that term, in that situation, but you can't use it when referring to a person. And the governor, well, Tim Walz, it has elevated Tim Walz among Democrats. And I thought he was kind of being slipped away into obscurity like Kamala after the embarrassing loss last year in the election. But this has elevated Walz. And Walz also has some issues because his state of Minnesota is now credibly accused, and the numbers are pretty staggering, of bilking the American people, you and I, of upwards of $1 billion in tax money that went to fund some pretty awful scams. One under the guise of feeding the children during COVID. Another under the guise of saying, oh, we're getting help for autistic children. So in both cases, these criminals, who I think more than 80 have been accused and about 75 plus have already either been convicted or taken plea deals because they were caught taking money from you and I, millions and millions of dollars. As I said, one under the guise of, oh, we're feeding the children. And then they were saying the children had autism. And it turns out this was all a scam run from post office boxes. There weren't even clinics set up, and there were people that were not authorized to treat autistic kids that were getting paid. And the parents who said their kids were autistic were getting paid every month as well. Why not? There's plenty of government money flowing around. And where was it all centered? Minnesota. And where in Minnesota was it centered? Ilhan Omar's district. Interestingly enough. Gee, it's funny how that happened. This topic was brought up this weekend on NBC News, on Meet the Press. The topic, Kristen Welker asked the governor about it.
Speaking of the Somali community, President Trump is targeting them and your state in part. He's citing fraud as the reason for his crackdown. Dozens of people of East African descent have been charged, convicted, and sentenced for stealing more than $1 billion in taxpayer money from government programs during COVID. As you know, Governor, that is more than Minnesota spends each year to run its Department of Corrections. So I want to give you a chance to respond to this. Do you take responsibility for failing to stop this fraud in your state?
Now, the funny thing is if you're watching this happen yesterday on Meet the Press, you see the governor staring kind of slack-jawed and waiting for Welker to stop speaking because he obviously knew the question was coming. But do you take responsibility for failing to stop the fraud? There are credible reports that the governor knew about these, through whistleblowers, knew about these massive scams. But what is he focusing on?
Well, certainly I take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk theoretically. We have to solve problems. And I will.
What does that even mean? You take responsibility for putting people in jail? Never mind the attorney generals, the prosecutors, the cops who catch the people, the investigators, but continue.
Note, it's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated.
Now, imagine how much better you'd be run. Oh, that was federal money. That's right. The $1 billion didn't come out of the state pockets. It came out of the pockets of the federal government. It came out of the pockets of citizens like me, like Michael Piercy. Yeah, that's kind of interesting, Governor, that you would go that way. But you're all excited about that. Minnesota's just so well run. Yeah, what about all the dozens and dozens of Somalis now convicted?
But that attracts criminals. Those people are going to jail. We're doing everything we can. But to demonize an entire community on the actions of a few, it's lazy. And as you heard Senator...
I don't know if it's lazy. It's called policing. You know, when we have a description of a suspect, you generalize and you go out and look for the people that match the description. And then you winnow it down till you get to the actual perps in this case. Keep going, Governor.
Kelly say this president has cut a lot of inspector generals. He's cut programs that could help us tackle this on. So we'll take it on. We'll put folks in jail. I don't care what your nationality is. I don't care what your religion is, your color. If you're committing crimes, these are programs that were meant to serve students with autism, to housing, and to making sure people had enough to eat. There's a reason Minnesota ranks as the top. Lowest childhood poverty, best place for children to live. People are taking advantage of that. They're going to prison. That is totally disconnected with demonizing an entire group of people who came here fleeing civil war and created a vibrant community that makes Minnesota and this country better. But
now, you can create a vibrant community if you're getting $1 billion from the federal government funded into that community. I'm just saying. There was enough money to pay off the parents who were telling people, oh, yes, our kids have autism, and we need help. We need helpers. The federal government will pay for this, right? This is so interesting to me to watch all this come together. Now, the other side of this, I learned something about Tim Walz's family on Thanksgiving, and he talked about the president's comment about him being neurodivergent or highly regarded.
Well, here we got a guy on Thanksgiving where we spent time with our families. We ate, we played Yahtzee, we cheered for football or whatever. This guy is apparently in a room ranting about everything else. This is not normal behavior. It is not healthy. And presidents throughout time have released a couple things. They've released their tax returns, not Donald Trump, and they've released their medical records, not Donald Trump. And look, the MRI is one thing, but I think what's most concerning about this is as your viewers out there are listening, has anyone in the history of the world ever have an MRI assigned to them and have no idea what it was for, as he says? So look, it's clear the president's fading physically. I think the mental capacity, again, ranting, crazily at midnight on Thanksgiving about everything else, there's reasons for us to be concerned. This is a guy that randomly says the airspace over Venezuela is closed. He's ruminating on if you could win a nuclear war. Look, this is a serious position. It's the most powerful position in the world. And we have someone at midnight throwing around slurs that demonize our children. And at the same time, he's not solving any of the problems. So I'm deeply concerned that he is incapable of doing the job.
Well, this is the new tactic from the left. But you were playing Yahtzee. Yahtzee? I hadn't heard Yahtzee in a long time. A long, long time. The president was not demonizing children. He was mocking you, sir. He was making fun of you, Governor. He was not mocking kids. You have to understand it. And let's remember this this selective outrage from Tim Walz. It might have something to do with how directed at Tim Walz, the president's comments directed at Tim Walz, might have something to do with how the Minnesota governor talked about President Trump while he was on the campaign trail.
Well, maybe it's time for us to be a little meaner. But when it's adult like Donald Trump...
Yeah, I'm not going to play it because I know it needs a beep. He said a lot of things about the president. He talked about being meaner and bullying the ass out of President Trump. He also talked about demonizing Elon Musk. He fantasized about, remember when he fantasized about waking up and getting the news that Donald Trump was dead? Yeah, that was the case. He did that this summer. He did this summer when the Democrats were pushing that crazy story.
Although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. Just saying. There will be news sometime, just so you know, there will be news.
This is the latest line they're working on, the president saying that his health is declining both physically and mentally. We had it from the New York Times last week. We had it from Lawrence O'Donnell. It's really, really getting to be a bit much. And the president was out playing golf this weekend. I don't know if you saw it. I saw him sink an incredible chip shot from the edge of the green in front of Wayne Gretzky, in front of, I'm trying to think of the other golfer was. It wasn't Bryson DeChambeau, but there was another pro golfer, and Brett Baer from Fox News was in the foursome with the president. He chipped in a nice shot, and I guess they won the hole because he kind of walked off saying, it's nice to be winning. Well, there are some poll numbers that are out there. We're going to have to talk about the Gallup poll that has Harry Enton over at CNN almost wetting himself over how bad the Gallup poll numbers are for the president. Harry Enton, it's actually a person. It's not a skin condition at CNN. But we'll get to that just around the corner. So much to cover today. Is there a peace deal coming between Russia and Ukraine? That would be monumental, and wouldn't that be great? Is there more to know about the shooter who took the life of one beautiful member of our National Guard, Sarah Beckstrom, last week, and Andrew Wolf is still fighting? Is there more to know? What about the president? Can he do what he said on a Truth Social post last week? Can he cancel all of the AutoPen executive orders? Can he cancel all of the AutoPen pardons? We'll get into that. And you're welcome to join us. Always welcome. 888-630-9625. 888-630-9625. It's Opelka in for Plant. Last minute guest hosting on the Chris Plant Show. And welcome back to the Chris Plant Show on this Monday, Cyber Monday. It's December. You wake up and it's December. Mike Opelka sitting in for Chris once more. I know I told you on Friday he'd be back today. I lied. I didn't really lie because I didn't know. So I'm sorry. But Chris should be back tomorrow. I'm hoping he gets well soon. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. We have much to discuss. Since we last talked, President Trump has said he's going to permanently pause migration from all third world countries. And, of course, the left went racist, xenophobe, all that. We'll get to all of that. And I mentioned the Harry Enton, not a skin condition, actually a living person who works at CNN. Harry Enton, very excited today. And as a pollster, you really want to give credibility to the data you're presenting by just being a journalist and showing the numbers and letting the numbers speak for themselves. I swear to you, Harry Enton, not a condition, may have soiled himself when he presented the numbers on CNN earlier today. We'll get to that. We need a little breathing room, and we're going to talk about some of the things since we mentioned Minnesota. Some of the things that have come out of the mouth of America's ingrate, Ilhan Omar. We'll talk about some of that because that's coming. It's a very busy day today on the Chris Plant Show, and it is Cyber Monday. Are you participating? I ordered all of my cyber stuff yesterday because, there's no such thing as just Cyber Monday. They've been giving you the deal since last Friday. So I got my Cyber Monday stuff. It'll probably show up during the show. So if you hear the doorbell ring at the Opelka Home Studios, it's just the Amazon guy. Deal with it. And the phones are open at 888-630-9625, 888-630-9625. Always a diverse group of topics and individuals joining the show. Let's say hi to Brad in Key West, Florida. Hello, Brad.
First of all, greetings. I grew up in North Chicago, going to Glenbrook North, so we're all neighbors there.
Yes, we are. Hello. Well, hey, neighbor. What's up?
Yeah. Anyways, I'm calling because you were talking about COVID, and from day one, in fact, if you watch one of the Equalizer movies with Denzel Washington, he says timing is everything. And the timing of COVID was for one reason. The Democrats knew they were losing the impeachment in January, and February is when the COVID started out. And living in Key West, we have a Democrat lesbian mayor, and she's doing the Democrat playbook of closing the beaches and writing $500 tickets to anyone not wearing a mask. But if you were exercising or if you're on a bicycle, you didn't have to wear a mask. So my bicycle kept me immune.
Oh,
and,
good.
Oh, yeah, it was great. I never wore a mask. But when I had to go to Publix, I would put on a full-face snorkel mask and go swimming through the bull crap.
I think I saw your picture, Brad. I saw a guy with a snorkel mask at a Publix in Key West. Actually, we're up against the wall here, but thank you. Yes, there were a lot of people who've called it the plandemic and not the pandemic. Thank you, Brad. Appreciate you. It's Opelka in for Plant on the Chris Plant Show. It is the Chris Plant Show on this Monday, Cyber Monday. Yes, it is the continuation of one of the great weekends in America when we're all encouraged to go out and spend as much as possible. And if you got it, why not? Just don't run up your credit cards. Opelka, Mike Opelka, that's me, in for Chris today. Did not expect to be here, but then again, Chris did not expect to be under the weather. I do anticipate he'll return tomorrow, hopefully. And we're going to try and get to everything today because it was quite a busy weekend since we last met on Friday. All of the things that were announced from the president, including the pause on immigration from third world countries, which has triggered the left. We'll hear from some of the people who are so very upset about this. So very upset. And, that's what you do. Like when there's a problem, when the toilet's overflowing, you shut off the water and then you try and solve the problem and then you clean it up and then you turn the water back on. The left doesn't understand that. They don't have any understanding of fluid dynamics, I guess. The other thing that has the left apoplectic today is the White House has put together a new trolling page, and it makes me laugh. It's the White House calling out the basically the media weasel of the week, the member of the Main Street media who has underperformed the most and shown their bias and just the fake newsery. I don't know if they've come up with the appropriate award title for this. We used to talk about the woke Olympics whenever I'd be sitting in for Chris, and we'd point out all the ridiculous woke stuff that people, schools, universities, businesses were doing. But this one, this might be a good way to point out not just the wokeness of the media, but the basic lack of journalism that exists in some parts of the mainstream media. The president did get to it on the plane coming back from Mar-a-Lago this past weekend in one of the Air Force One gaggles where the media gathers, where that little door goes from the general press quarters on Air Force One to the private quarters on Air Force One. And the president stands at the doorway. It's kind of like answering questions from somebody who knocks on your door. The Jehovah's Witnesses have come to your house, and they've knocked on the door, and you're leaning in the door jamb answering questions. But the folks at News Nation were probably happy and yet not happy. Allegro non troppo, as you might say in the music world. Happy but not too happy about getting the president's attention. This happened on Air Force One.
Governor Walz asked you to release MRI records.
Will you tell us what it was
Governor
for?
Walz, you mean the incompetent governor Walz? So if they want to release it, it's okay with me to release it.
He's asking about, this reporter asked about releasing the MRI. And the president said right off the bat, if they want to release it, go ahead. It's okay with me.
It's perfect.
What was the role they
It's like my phone call where I got impeached. It's absolutely perfect. So if you want to hear about it or if you want to release it, do you want to have it released?
Yes,
News Nation, failing News Nation.
No, sir, we're not failing.
News Nation is doing lousy, by the way. But if you want to have it released, I'll release it.
Please, can you tell us what they were looking at?
So he called News Nation a failing News Nation, and the reporter is taking exception with that, which you have to respect a reporter. But the post on social media says, basically we checked, and News Nation barely gets higher ratings than SpongeBob reruns. I thought SpongeBob was popular. Maybe reruns are not so popular, but I thought that was interesting. And maybe up for citation by the White House in this media award will be CNN's pollster extraordinaire, or pollster very excited, Harry Enton. Again, I feel like I shouldn't have to say this. We should all know this by now, but some people think Harry Enton is a skin condition. It's not. It's a person. Harry Enton was excited to share the latest poll numbers that he's reading about President Trump not being popular. Well, when 92% of the news about you is bad news, are you really surprised? And when the Democrats come out and blame everything on you, everything is Trump's fault, are you surprised? But here's Harry Enton excited about the bad news in the bad polls for President Trump.
It's a disaster if it holds towards the midterm elections. And I should note, of course, it's not alone. I mean, just take a look here. This is Gallup. This is the longest running poll. Gallup has been conducting polls since my father was a kid. And my father was born in 1927, had me in the 60s. Look at this in January. Donald Trump's not approving. Not too bad, not too great. It was at -1 point, right within the margin of error, breaking even. But look at this now. Negative 24 points, way down. We're talking about a drop of over 20 points in the wrong direction for the President of the United States. Minus 24 points, that's a 23-point move in the incorrect direction if you're the President. And, of course, what's so important here, Sarah Seidner, is it matches the trend that we've seen with other polls. That is Donald Trump hitting his low for the second term. I was doing the count last night. I think we're up to 10 polls in sort of the last 40 days, 10 different pollsters who have said that Trump is at the lowest point he is in his second term.
So this is kind of interesting. Harry Enton calling out the polling numbers for President Trump, but getting very excited, really, seriously, all pumped up. He's really thrilled about this. He's very thrilled. He's excited. He's breathless. He's not a journalist. He's giving an opinion. He got even more excited about how bad they were.
But look, the only one who's worse for me, either among Republicans or Democrats at this point in his second term, is Richard Nixon. And of course,
now, he's gone back in history and looked back at other presidents, but only put Republican presidents on the wall because he said he didn't have enough room. No, you can't shrink the font, can you? Of course you can. They only wanted to put Republicans up there, but this is comparing the second-term numbers of a president against the current second-term numbers of Donald Trump. Let's hear that.
But look, the only one who's worse for me, either among Republicans or Democrats at this point in second term, is Richard Nixon. And of course, Richard Nixon had to wave adios amigos goodbye less than a year after this poll was taken. He was at minus 36 points. Trump at minus 24 points. That beats, or is worse, I should say, beats in the wrong direction. George W. Bush, minus 19 points. His Republican Party, of course, suffered major losses in the 2006 midterm elections. Dwight Eisenhower, plus 31 points. Donald Trump has never smelt that at all. I had to go.
I'm sorry, the journalism here is just stunning to me. He talks about the good numbers that Dwight Eisenhower had at this point in his second term, the positive 31%. And he says Donald Trump has never smelled that at all. Is that journalism speak? I don't think they teach you that.
The archives to dig up that photo, and Ronald Reagan at plus 41 points. But again, it also is worse than Harry S. Truman. It's worse than Lyndon Baines Johnson. It's worse than Barack Obama. It's worse than Bill Clinton. Anywhere you look, this is the second worst for a president of either party at this point in their second term, dating all the way back since the 1940s.
Now, what did we learn today? We learned, first of all, that Harry Enton's father was born in 1927 when he was in his 60s. I hope he's still alive. I hope you still have him with you. That would make him 98 years old. That's pretty amazing in itself. But the fact that Harry Enton is just so darned excited about bad news for President Trump and can't wait to report it in CNN, very excited to give him airtime to show that his numbers are horrible. But can they come back? Harry Enton, still excited, the very excited Harry Enton, trying to decide whether or not President Trump's poll numbers can make a comeback ahead of the midterm elections.
You know, we always say, hey, look, we still got 11 months until the midterm elections. That's forever in politics. So I decided to go back and look at this point in the second term. What happened? What was the trend line heading into the midterm elections? Were there any presidents who saw their net approval ratings rise by more than 5 points? Well, guess what, Sarah Sider? You go all the way back since Harry S. Truman. 0 out of 8 times did the president's net approval rating rise by over 5 points. And, of course, Donald Trump, right now in Gallup, minus 24 points. He's in the minus teens according to the average. If he does not see a rise of more than 5 points, see you later, that Republican majority. It has never happened. Of course, we live in such a weird time in politics. Who knows? We live in a weird time, but he's going to have to break history, Sarah Sider.
All right, we will have to see, Mr. Harry Enton.
They're all excited. They're probably having cupcakes right now. They probably got so excited at all this bad polling, they had cupcakes delivered. I guarantee you, it's very. Or Harry had to change, because I do think there's a pretty good chance he's soiled himself. It's really interesting that the Schadenfreude. I think that's the correct German term, Schadenfreude moment. The Schadenfreude moment, when you get joy over the misfortune of others, glossed over at the very end of that little rant by Harry Enton, was the fact that if you take all the polls together, Trump's in the teens in terms of his negative rating. He's in the teens. And he just took the worst example. He took the absolute worst example he could find in order to highlight Donald Trump's disapproval with voters at this point, with voters that had been polled. Now, if we look at other polling data among the base for Donald Trump, he's still solid with the Republican base, very solid, in the high 80s. I think it was 87% approval among the Republican base. And among the Democrats, President Trump polls about where he normally polls. I think it's like 3 to 5%. But the key to the midterm elections, 330 some days away from now, the key is going to be in the independent voters. And currently, if you look at the majority of the polls, the president is sitting at about 30% approval with independent voters. And that's a warning sign. Now, can that change? Of course it can. if the economy turns around, if the president and the Republicans work on affordability, and we have significant positive numbers in terms of affordability, today gas is at its lowest price since 2021. If we go back and look, gas prices nationally are at their lowest price. And I saw the price for a barrel of crude oil this morning floating around $58 a barrel, and that means lower prices are still on the way. But if the economy turns around, if the gas prices cause the price of food to go down because it takes a lot of gas to deliver food to your stores, then that should be a good thing for the affordability issue. The Democrats are going to try and keep leaning on affordability as long as the economy has a little shaky part around it, and as long as we see some of AI pushing people out of jobs. And we'll talk about that, too, because we have to get to some of that. I did not know that this Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, as it was called, and then today, Cyber Monday, I did not know that it was moved to try and stop that. I was not aware of that, but I happened to tune in to CNN and catch Bakari Sellers telling black Americans that they should not be supporting any businesses out there that may have donated anything to Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form. Did you know about this? I was not aware. Was anyone? I knew it was Small Business Saturday, and my wife and I went out and did a couple visits to some small businesses that are candle makers, etc. Was not aware that we had We Ain't Buying It, a movement that was out there. And but for Bakari Sellers telling me, I would not have known. Maybe somebody did. You can share your thoughts on this. 888-630-9625, 888-630-9625. This was Bakari Sellers. I think this was Friday night.
LaTasha Brown, Black Voters Matter. We Ain't Buying It are launching a movement this Black Friday and going forward about stores that are contributing to things like Donald Trump's inauguration and all of these things, which we feel like, or the library, which.
So you're mad because Donald Trump has people donating to his library so that, it's not a federal expense, or maybe the ballroom ticks you off?
Library, which.
Something like that bothers you? Is that what you're telling me, Bakari Sellers? Yeah, he's saying that they don't want the We Ain't Buying It campaign. We ain't buying it. I was not aware of the We Ain't Buying It campaign. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. I wonder how many small businesses with people of color owning them were hurt because you told people not to patronize them because they may have supported Trump. Interesting. Interesting, these litmus tests that are put out there by liberals. We need to investigate further. And we will, just around the corner. You want to weigh in on any of this? 888-630-9625, 888-630-9625. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant. One more day on the Chris Plant Show. It is the Chris Plant Show on this Monday, Cyber Monday, and it's also the continuation of We Ain't Buying It. I'm sorry, it makes me laugh. I wonder who's on the list. The We Ain't Buying It campaign. Does that mean since Meta, Facebook, Instagram, since Zuckerberg has donated to the building of the ballroom, that Bakari Sellers and the people behind the We Ain't Buying It campaign, that they don't want people using their social media accounts? I wonder how many people are actually doing that. We ain't buying it. I know a while back, Rosie O'Donnell was also talking about shutting it down. Rosie O'Donnell had this idea that they were going to actually have a general strike in America where all of America would stop doing everything. And by all of America, they meant only people that suffered from Trump derangement syndrome would be doing this. But Rosie O'Donnell was talking about blackout the system. She actually whispering it when she was on a podcast talking about blacking out the system. It was very spooky.
Black out the system. Black out the system.
Yes, black out the system. Black out the system. That was the call to arms, or the call to do nothing. Well, Rosie, we love Rosie. We got to play this clip from Rosie. Rosie O'Donnell was with Jim Acosta, and she was talking about something that never happened. At least I would challenge her to prove to us that this happened. I would challenge us. Says cut 25, Michael. Rosie O'Donnell talking to Jim Acosta about something that never happened.
I'll tell you the truth. My daughter is now saying, damn him, damn Trump, and smashing her hand on the table. And I said, wow, honey, what are you thinking? And she said, he made us move in order for our own safety. And it's now he's destroying the country. You know.
Sure. That never happened. That never happened. But Rosie keeps digging the hole deeper.
Listen, wow. She lives here. She hears what I'm saying to you. Not that I go around speaking like this every day if it's not an interview, but I think to myself, you don't want to give this to her. You know, whatever this thing is.
I think it's too late. I think you've already given it to her. You know what's kind of weird? It was about 2 years ago, Rosie O'Donnell, I think she was talking about the same child. She was talking about how to explain genders to kids because it really was kind of her thing and she made sense.
Tell them next time they're in the bathtub to look down. If it's a hot dog, they're a boy, and if it's not, they're a girl.
So she goes from rational moments to these crazy moments where she's talking about blacking out the system.
Black out the system.
Yeah.
Black out the system.
And then talking about a story. I guess she and Katie Porter found the same cup of whatever it is they're drinking and saying that their kids are saying things that never happened. It is truly something that should spark Child Protective Services to make a visit there. Never happened, Rosie. Never happened. But, talking to Jim Acosta, I think 2 people heard it until now. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show.